Hey there, folks. Welcome to another episode of Surviving Saturday. Today, Wendy and I thought we might go a little bit different direction. We wanted to kind of let you in on a conversation we had this morning, actually, that we were grateful for because it went a little bit different direction. The subject was giving feedback to one another and what are some of the pitfalls and challenges when we try to bring an observation or something that we have a concern about to the other person. And, not just time and setting, but just the words we use and the spirit we come with. And so it's going to feel a little bit like we're talking about just kind of communication techniques, and we kind of are, but there's a story aspect to it as well. There's aspects of it that do relate to what we are more frequently talking about, which is how we're impacted by our stories and how that affects how we show up. Does that sound like an okay direction to go today, Lynn?
I think we're talking about attunement to each other.
Yes.
And to ourselves.
And we're not going to recount for you some of our very misattuned conversations that I've had.
Not today.
Not today. But this one, we were able in real time to learn something maybe a little bit. And we hope it'll be encouraging to you. We've been married 32 years. We're still learning stuff. We're still coming up against ways that we miss each other and trying to learn how to not do that as much, as often as problematic.
Yes.
What was the sort of the initial piece of information that kind of got this conversation going, something you brought to me?
So we woke up this morning, and by woke up, I mean your snooze went off a lot of times.
You're saying it might be such a high number that we don't have an accurate count?
And it's tuned to a couple of different radio stations, and some might be a talk show that I'm very confused about jumping in the middle of. Some might be really loud music where I feel like I'm getting screamed at.
Well, yeah, I don't know what station it is. I try to choose something that's purposely disruptive, because if the alarm goes off and it's like NPR and they're talking all peacefully and calmly and blah, 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 I'm going to stay asleep. I mean, that's not going to help. So it has to be a little jolting.
I wake up like on the verge of a heart attack.
I know.
In any event.
It doesn't help also that. So one of the settings is this radio station that sometimes is blaring music and sometimes is loud people talking. But the other setting right now is an annoying, just within the alarm clock. Na, 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 na,
Oh, yeah.
That
one's
is also,
terrible.
I mean, appropriately, you'd think it would get me up.
Yeah.
I looked at they have those, alarm clocks that will jump off your bedside table and bounce around and move around the room until you get it. I've thought sometimes it might be good for me to have one of those.
I think it would be good for you, because I certainly always hope I'm up and out before the one you just described.
Yes. Yeah.
So once we were awake, which
I appreciate, by the way. You did not say this while we were still in bed or while I was still fighting off this. It was we were moving on with the day.
This is before I said anything. This was all in my head.
Okay.
I remembered that once you got up and moving, I had a diagnosis I was ready to give you.
Oh, because you had read it.
I had learned about this condition
a
couple of days ago.
Okay.
Determined with all of my years of medical school that it applies to you. And I remembered that I wanted to tell you that you have sleep inertia.
Yes. And that was a new term, not the word inertia. I've heard it in general. But when you said it, there's a part of it I'm like, that does sort of fit. It's when I'm awake, I'm sort of awake and it's hard to wind down and transition, and I stay up too late. And then when I'm getting up in the morning, I definitely it's, if you know the concept, the physical concept of inertia is a body at rest is inclined to stay at rest, and a body in motion will stay in motion. And so in the morning, when I'm waking up from sleep, what you're observing is, or suggesting, I'm a body at rest and I don't want to stop it. And that is somewhat true.
So yeah, I had read through the criteria from this article in my Apple News feed and decided you needed to know that you have this condition.
Yes. And one of the things I think first I communicated, of course, from the sweatshirt and pajama pants I was wearing, was part of the issue with getting up is we are experimenting with keeping our bedroom super, super cold.
Which actually feels lovely.
Lovely to you, yes. And I feel like I've got to hunker down. And so I'm in the morning when it's cold. You all know this, at least some people experience, like you just want to stay under the covers and cozied up sometimes. And so I'm like, that's part of my problem, but that's not really the issue of why I can't get up.
Because as I pointed out with my medical license, You did this way before we started keeping the room cold.
That is also very true. Yes. And so I was chewing on that, and I've done sleep studies before in the past and things like that. So I was thinking, but I was open enough to it. I'm like, that could be a concept. And so I went and looked up, of course, as we all do on the internet. Okay, what do people know about sleep inertia and what is it and all that? And I came downstairs, and I think what I said was basically, hey, I read about sleep inertia, and I get what they're saying. It doesn't seem to be like it's really a diagnosis. It's kind of, they called it a phenomenon. And so I don't really know what to do with that. I'm not sure it really, and it kind of points to some of the same remedies that I already probably know I should do and don't really do well.
Right. It's in the category of what the kids and I diagnosed you with a year ago, revenge bedtime procrastination, right?
Well, it
Yeah.
definitely, what happens at night, definitely that resonates a lot. I don't
Yeah.
care whether they call that if that
Yeah.
never makes the DSM-5, I don't care. It sounds right to me. Like, yes, I'm trying to get back time now because I don't feel like I had control of how I spent my time today.
Yeah. So I knew this was a phenomena. I didn't think it was truly a classifiable disorder,
Yes.
but it was something that felt like it applied to you. So you came downstairs and you said, it's a phenomena, not a diagnosis. And I started having thoughts right then.
And you do want to share those?
My first thoughts were, you're trying to get off the hook. I'm just describing you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, and
Yeah.
it annoys me.
Fair enough.
So maybe the diagnosis is annoying a husband in the morning. I don't know. Maybe that's
Well,
as far as we
but
get.
that's fair because we've identified also the two worst times in our house for either of us, for us to have a conversation. One is when I'm first waking up, and what's the other one?
When I'm going to bed,
Yes.
which could be like 6 PM. Not really, but I wouldn't
Right.
mind it.
Right. We have now, after many, many years and much process of elimination, we have eliminated two times that it is not the right time to start a conversation of any significance, both of logistical, practical, or of, hey, my heart, can you connect with me? Because you start to shut down and
Mhm.
you're almost asleep before you're really asleep.
Right.
And I'm not awake until I'm really awake. So we can name that for sure. But you kind of had a response to me saying, hey, it was and again, I wasn't dismissing it outright. I didn't say, that's so dumb you brought that up, which is better because my younger self would probably have done that. But I was like, hey, I'm not sure it added anything to the mix. And it kind of was making me, probably I was feeling a little bit, but not a lot of shame. Like, yeah, this is just something that I still struggle with. But I wasn't in a terrible place about it. And then you said, after I communicated that,
Then I started saying some of the things in my head, mainly one. And I
okay,
just said, well, the problem is you don't ever think anything applies to you.
yes, I'll let everybody pause to have their own reaction to that.
Before emailing to say that I'm right.
Yes.
No. So I see the difficulty and the unkindness.
Well, you don't have to see it yet because you didn't at the time.
I didn't at the time.
And
But now that I have said it out loud
yes,
again.
but at the time, yeah, and you said it, and I would say that it was not said meanly, but we both have been guilty of saying something of that nature in a more harsh way. And it was not, because it was not harsh and we were in a pretty good space, I felt it a little and I did push back. I did have kind of a defensive response. I said, hey, that's not fair. Lots of stuff is applied to me. And I thought about listing the things like, here's things that I've literally gotten treatment for. Okay. Can we
Oh, I'm
just do
glad
that?
you didn't do that.
No, that would not have been helpful because you
Yeah.
would have said, yeah, but you need to put other things on the list. And we would have been off to the races. That's the whole point. But what happened was I didn't get super elevated about it, and I wasn't in a bad place myself. And I knew I needed to get upstairs to get showered. We were headed out to church from there. And then, but I did say at least a partially defensive, but not big response. And where'd that leave you when I headed upstairs?
Well, in my head, I thought, yeah, he thinks that he says things apply to him, but he doesn't. So am I just going to let it go, lonely, knowing that he won't take my advice? Am I just going to ignore this? Am I going to push it? And I think I started, I don't know, eating chocolate chips or something for breakfast. And so I let it go.
Okay. But you did something different. You were not like when I came down, you weren't still in that.
No, I had almost forgotten the chocolate chips were really good.
And I wasn't completely in it. I wasn't totally ruminating about it. I was trying to listen to music and sort of, I didn't spin it out either. And so what follows this next, part of the conversation wasn't really premeditated. It was just literally kind of a moment that I decided to try to seize. But I came back down and one of your poems was out kind of with
Mhm.
my stuff. And as I was sitting there, I don't know if I was making my tea or what, but I was reading your poem again. And it's one that you were saying, I don't know if you've seen that one before.
Yeah,
And it
it's a
turns out I
newer
had,
one.
yeah, but I
Mhm.
really liked it. And I was reading it and I was going through it and I told you how much I liked
You
it and
did. You were
pointed,
very kind.
here's what I like about this. Here's what's really capturing me. And we talked through that. So I think you felt seen and heard by that. And I
Mhm.
wasn't doing that for any ulterior motive or anything. I was just,
Yeah,
man,
it
this is
didn't feel
good.
that way.
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't. But what came to me as we were ending that part of the conversation, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. I said, I actually don't have any feedback for you on this poem. I really don't. But I want to offer you, if I offered you some feedback and you didn't really appreciate it or it didn't really land with you, let me give you two options of how I would say my next sentence. And I just want to know which one of these do you prefer? And so option A, I said, is I would say sometimes it feels to me like you aren't really receptive to my feedback, particularly if it's critical or could be described as negative. So that's option A. Option B is, what if I said, you never really listen to my feedback anyway? And I said, which of those would you prefer and would you
Oh, and I
choose?
knew hands down A.
Yes. And
But I did think as soon as you said it, oh, he actually does have criticism.
so you were still fearful that I did.
I was like, uh-oh, did I just fall into a trap?
Ah,
But it was
oh,
clear between choice A and choice B, I felt loved by choice A and I felt harsh judgmentalism by choice B.
yes. And just the difference in wording again, you never listen to my feedback versus sometimes it feels like you're not receptive, particularly if it's critical, right? And
Mhm.
so you answered that kind of within seconds and you knew you liked A and you did not like B.
Mhm.
And then I said, truthfully, I don't have any feedback. This is not a setup for feedback. I'm just curious about that.
Let me add that my body actually felt braced
Okay.
when you said choice B. You never listened to my feedback.
Oh,
And other than my suspicion with choice A, I actually felt really at rest when you said, sometimes it feels to me like you're really not receptive to my feedback,
hmm,
especially if it sounds negative.
yeah.
Like I felt restful and then suspicious. But the second when my body tensed and
Yeah.
I could feel
So
it.
that's fascinating too, because this was an experiment. This is like, hey, I'm not really asking you a question, but pretend I am, and your body still has a reaction.
Mhm.
Doesn't that tell us something?
Mhm.
Our bodies, they are here listening, and particularly if we have trauma in our backgrounds and all, they are reading the cues
Well, it makes
very
me think
closely.
of Dan Siegel, who's written a number of parenting books, one of which is called Parenting from the Inside Out. He, when he's teaching, will do this experiment where he will just ask people to stay in their chair and he will several times say the word no, no.
Oh,
Okay. And then he'll pause and then he'll do the same thing with yes with a different tone. And he will ask people to describe the difference in the feeling.
oh,
And
wow.
when I hear him, he's yelling no, he's doing it generically into a group in a room.
Okay.
I know it has nothing to do with me, but my chest tightens
Oh,
up.
wow.
I can feel the judgment, the curtness, the demand. I think the demand
Oh, yeah.
would maybe
Yeah.
be the best description for what I feel.
And you're literally an observer. You're not in it. Like he's literally not telling you no,
No,
but
he's
yeah, you
just
feel it.
yelling
Yeah.
it into the room.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
am waking up to that I have more sensitivity to that than I used to realize. Have gotten really good at sort of tuning it out and trying to soldier on. But the more I let myself sort of admit I have a body and settle into it, I'm
Mhm.
like, huh, I'm having a response to that.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this way. Happened to be in a mediation I handled last week where it took me a while to realize I'm bothered by the way both these lawyers are handling this particular situation. I'm the mediator and they're not ready to be here and they don't even really want to be here and they don't
Mhm.
appreciate me. And my body it's sort of coming out when I'm talking to them.
Yeah.
But I kind of needed to also. I'm like, y'all don't really seem to need me or want me. So go about your business.
Yeah.
So then to continue the conversation from this morning though, so I said, we talked about a couple of things. I said, I want to give you one more A and B option. I want to give you one more just thought experiment. I said, this time you're bringing some feedback to me and I'm not really hearing it to start with, or it's not landing how you want it to with me. And here's option A and option B. Tell me which of these you would prefer hearing. A is sometimes I feel like you're resistant to something I bring you being relevant for you. And option B is you don't ever think anything applies to you. Now, how did you respond to those two options?
Well, that was interesting because my first thought was to hear these statements through the lens of being the speaker, because I had said option B to you
Right?
very recently.
Right.
And so it felt less harsh to me from the vantage point of speaker. And it felt like I'm just saying what's true. Do I need to sugarcoat it?
Yeah, you
Okay.
actually used that word. You said,
Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
Right. And then as I sat with it and I realized, and this is pretty quick, what would it be like to be on the receiving end of these
Yes.
two comments?
Yes.
And I realized, oh, they land very differently than they leave the mouth.
Yes.
They
yes.
land on the ears in a different way.
Yeah, that's what I thought was just super powerful. In fact, I was surprised. I thought at first, and what I kind of wanted to happen was for you to go, oh, obviously A, and then kind of realize, oh, crap, I said B, didn't I? But you instead, because you were still thinking of B, you were thinking of, because the roles were reversed. So because you're the speaker, you're saying this, those didn't feel different to you. And I think that's super instructive because when you're the one who wants to say to the other person, I have a concern with how you respond when I come to you. When we have the concern, you could say what's true is maybe you believe, you don't ever think anything applies to you. But both of those are sort of true, but so either one feels equal to say.
Right. And as I'm sitting here, I'm, having faces of clients flash through my mind of when a husband, a wife, a parent says something that is, quote, true. And they do not understand why the other person is not listening, is arguing, shuts down. And I think there's something very true about the fact that it depends on the vantage point from which you're considering this. Are you considering the content through the speaker who is trying to get a message across, or as the listener who is receiving maybe something that's in general difficult to hear?
Yeah, I'll give an example, a quick one from there's a couple I've been working with doing a therapeutic separation. And this is where they are separated. They are not sure they want the marriage to end. Neither of them wants it to end, but they know they can't continue in the patterns and dynamics they've had. And they've been married 30 years at least. And the husband is dealing with some really hard stuff. The wife is sort of naming it, and they're both sort of doing these kind of healing journeys. And they initially separated, and she went to go stay with some family, and that didn't go well for her. It didn't work well. It didn't feel as restful, and she had decided to come back to the house, but still wanting to separate. And one of the reasons, and I'm watching them have this conversation, one of the reasons he gave what she gave, she said, that didn't work partly because my family is talking trash about you. They are so trying to be on my side. They're saying all these terrible things about you. And I'm like, that's not what I want. That's not helpful. I still remember what's good about you, and I haven't given up, but they are in this reactive place. And so I turned to the husband and said, how is that? What are you hearing? And he goes, it just makes me feel shitty all over again for how terrible I've been to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow. What a shame-infused way to hear. He couldn't hear that she was actually standing against people who were shaming him and crapping on him. She's actually, no, you're not what I need now. I thought this is a great thing. And it missed with him because he's dealing with his own shame.
Yeah.
But I was able to kind of talk about it. I didn't say, hey, dummy, she said this, I'm like, is there a part of it you can honor? Can you hear that she is resistant to people who are wanting to shame you and put you and say, you're not worth sticking with? And that's the opposite of joining with your shame of you're so bad and you're terrible. She's actually saying, no, I'm holding on to your dignity.
Mm.
And just gently pointing that out. And he was floored, and in the best way. Like, it still was going to be hard for him to believe it, but what a picture of what we're feeling, where we are, and what we're receiving
Yes.
is going to impact how we hear. And so the other part we talked about, of course, especially when Wendy was first saying, those don't seem that different to me, because you did kind of stick with that for a little bit. Those A and B at that
for
point,
a few sentences
a few
today.
sentences.
I've stuck with them for days before,
Yes,
but
yes.
yeah.
Well, and one of the ways we talked to, I said, look, we do this in counseling and story work as the counselor therapist, and it really happens probably with you guys out there too, with your friends. You may see a dozen things or 10 things or 2 or 3 that would be good that somebody else needs to know that will help them in their life. But as a counselor, at least, you're not going to bring all that at once. We hold complexity a lot and don't say everything we see just because it's true and just because we think it would be helpful. It might be, but the timing and the level of trust and security matters. So that led to a conversation then. What I was asking is, why is it so much harder for us in our individual relationship? What do you think makes it more difficult for us to get into that mindset of, let me hold and not give everything now? And that led to a good conversation. What did we come up with?
Well, the first thing I thought was, and I phrased it a little differently then, but in essence, I prefer to not believe that I'm married to a human, meaning I would like you to be mature without fail.
100%
So
of the time.
sometimes I picture like I could have like a little remote control, and maybe you like look like a man, feel like a man when I touch you, but like I can press a little button that says kinder, more generous, mature, not grumpy, not reactive. So part of it is an expectation of you'll be mature all the time, as would I. I
Yes,
expect the
yes.
same of myself, but
Right.
surely Chris will hear this right, get this right, change, almost as if I shouldn't have to suffer your immaturity
Yes.
and you mine.
Right. And I, as you were saying, I'm like, oh, I do that too. I'm doing the same thing of I want you to be in a perfectly regulated and appropriately attuned to me, caring about me place all the time. And because you are a human, doesn't matter how much counseling training you or I or anybody gets, you're still a human. You're affected by things. If something punches you in the gut, you're not going to have access to the kinder part of yourself.
Right.
We often think back to when we first got our dog, Mick. Remember, this was crazy for us to learn, but we got a dog right after we got married. We love this dog. We saw him through the ER, all this stuff, and we had bonded with this dog great. And one day he went out. We lived by a busy road. He went out, was running away, got hit by a car. And I was the one who found him. I went over to try to help him. And I thought, well, oh gosh, he just got hit by a big hunk of ugly metal. He's going to be so glad his master, the guy that loves him, is coming over to give him care and get him out of the road and all. Well, how did he respond to me? Do you remember?
He probably bit you. I can't remember, but
Oh, he chomped me. He chomped me good, because the whole system is out of whack. He just got smacked by a big thing of metal.
He was in major fight mode.
He wasn't respecting, oh, I know this person and they're good. He wouldn't even be able to get there. And dang it, I wish we were different from that. I wish we didn't have that primitive part of ourselves that does get to a place of, I can't see a daggum good thing coming from you right now. But sometimes we do. And so that was one of the things, that expectation and tempering that, like, as much as you may love this person and as much healing. This is, I think, another place that we're tempted is, God, aren't we more healed than this? Aren't you more healed than this? Can you not please be more healed than this? You know, we start getting into that, and we're losing what we're stepping away from is the benefit of doing story work and trying to do it alongside each other and with help is, oh my gosh, of course you're off kilter.
Well, and that would be compassion instead of condescension, which I think the first way you described it, we would be condescending. Are you not further along?
Yes. Right.
I guess I misread you.
Yeah. And so there's also, we talked about, there are a couple other reasons it's hard between us. you want to be respected, right?
Mhm.
You want it to be when you speak, I go, oh my gosh, thank you for dropping another pearl of wisdom. I am
Yes.
so moved by your kindness and your wisdom towards me.
How
Um,
did I get so lucky to marry you?
that's right. Which is not a terrible longing, a desire, but not great to have as a driver. And I think the last thing we came up with too was, even though this was not an example of, you weren't super hurt and you weren't, this was not something you were, this does not destroy you for a long time. If I'm groggy in the morning and it's
Oh,
hard,
no.
this is not one of, there are other bigger issues that we have that cause you more hurt and pain. Is
Yes.
that fair?
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
fair.
Yes.
So you weren't as deeply hurt, but there was some hurt in there. And when we're speaking out of hurt, even to a small degree, we are less attuned to or sensitive to, how is this going to land?
Yes.
How is the other person going to hear this? And that's, I think, one of the challenges to even here to recognize it wasn't a big hurt and we weren't in a really bad place. But even that small amount, if it's more your hurt that's what's on your mind, then you're not thinking about, I wonder if this will be received well. I wonder if he will, feel more loved by this or not. The higher the hurt gets, I would say, on like if you had like a meter of 1 to 10, the higher the hurt is, the less you give a shit, excuse my language, but the less me or you or
Mhm.
anybody cares what the other person might think. Like in example, again, you're trying to get out of a burning building. You're going to shove some people around and yell at them. And that's actually might be love. Hey, you don't see
Yeah.
the beam that's about to fall on your head. I'm going to tackle you and move you out of the way. I don't care that this is going to hurt because I'm saving you from bigger hurt. I'm saving us or whatever. And so just even that becoming, we've been on a journey. I'm still on a journey, I think, of becoming more aware. When am I starting to feel threatened? And the tricky part here is the threats aren't physical and obvious, and they're not the same for each of
Mhm.
us. So being able to have some patience and curiosity and kindness of, oh, the other person's reacting. And it might be something I said, it might not be. But how do I get back? I'd like to be able to think about their perspective also,
Mhm.
and not just, you need to hear this. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yep. And I think what we came to is, we heard a long time ago, you can be right or you can aim to love.
Mhm.
And we were talking about this morning, you can be committed to being right or you can commit to having a healthy relationship, healthy marriage. Because that's going to mean that we hold what we see and say loosely and we really contend with what we hear. It's not that we get to disregard it if it isn't said well.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
it's not as if we don't get to speak when something is hurtful, but we want to hold compassion and humility and love above all.
Well, that identifies something else that we run into that I would add to the list of what makes it tough. I think each of us at times in when we are in more of a hurt or activated place, there is that fear. Oh, you're making me say this a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
I know how that goes. You just basically don't want to hear. You're just shutting me
Mhm.
down, and it starts to feel like that.
Yes, like a trap.
Yes.
Like we're
And
being trapped with the hurt.
yes. And so, like, you can't say, well, no, it is important how you say it, but I'm not using that as a means of silencing you or
Mhm.
saying you can't speak at all, or you can speak, but only when you jump through my magic hoops. I think that's an area we're trying to learn how to navigate better of
Yes.
how can I be sensitive to that. This is going to sound like I don't want to hear you at all, but
Which is also not loving.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's not loving. And so I was sort of, as I was kind of trying to summarize how I would, a rubric that I feel like I now know is a thing, which is progress after, I don't know how many years of counseling. It's at least a decade and a half probably, but in any conversation where we got to bring something hard, we want to say, hey, look, I feel like you're struggling. I feel like things aren't going well. And I want something to be different. Do a little test, kind of check in on our own heart. And you have to do this sort of individually. And how much am I bringing this to you out of my hurt? And I want relief from my hurt. And that is what's driving me. And what percentage is for your good? I think you are hurting or you're causing harm. You don't even know. I want better for you. and it's not a binary on off, one or the other. I think we're almost always some percentage mix of those.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it's paying attention to, and even maybe asking each other, hey, what percentage are we here? Because it feels like a lot of energy and harshness coming at me, and I
Mhm.
don't feel very cared for by it. Can you hear that? But I want to hear, I bet you have something good for me because you have before.
Mhm.
But can we adjust that mix a little bit? Because I'm feeling like I'm going to get eaten or squished or not listened to. And that's making it harder for me to listen to what you're bringing, but I want what you're bringing.
Yep. So,
I want to put in a plug real quick.
yeah.
We just finished watching a TV show, and I just was realizing it's not in our show notes. I'm going off script, but Jenny in Georgia,
Oh, yeah.
the fourth season we just watched.
Binged it in a
No,
week.
third season. Golly,
Yep.
it's really good. It's a lot of tough, difficult content, but they are playing with this dynamic on there very much. They have so
Yes.
many characters who are in hard places, needing to confront somebody they care about a lot and having no idea how to do it or doing it horribly. But you see each of the characters wrestling with,
Yes.
how do we do this?
Yes.
There's a teenage girl who has a lot of emotions towards both of her parents who are estranged. There's teenagers and adults, all of whom are trying to communicate disappointment, hurt, sadness, frustration. And a lot of time they do a terrible job of it. But there's some moments where they do a really good job.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
some beautiful connection.
Yeah.
Some of the mother-daughter stuff. Don't go there looking for validation of, your Christian values and morals and things like that.
There's a lot of murder and mayhem.
Yes.
But there is a really good wrestling with what does it mean to
Yes.
love, to be loyal, to work for the good of, yeah.
The moral complexity that
Yes.
they are able to weave is pretty phenomenal. So anyway, just a plug for something if you're looking, sometimes people are looking for a new show to binge. It's got some just intriguing aspects. The family dynamics there, the story element is really well done because they do a lot of kind of like This Is Us Pioneer doing flashbacks and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, we hope this is at least somewhat interesting and helpful for you guys. And
Yep.
we look forward to being back with
And
more episodes.
hopefully the people are not listening after 6 p.m. or before 6 a.m. if they struggle with that like us. But we do hope that this might make you think and think about the ways that you communicate with those you love. So happy weekend.
Happy weekend.